And I love the fact that you've got these big ambitions for this book, but you still have a humility around it, being the African child that you are. Because as much as your mom and dad said they did not understand it, but you are taking the audio version and you are submitting it for a Grammy.
Yes. It's the very same people who gave me the audacity. And I really think, when I say they don't understand, there's something about the language of poetry and English that because it's such a poetic language that I know if they gave me a book in Xhosa, I'd be like, Mom and Dad, I need to explain. In fact, there's poems in there where I speak about writing poetry with my parents in the sense that sometimes when I'm looking for a particular phrase or meaning, I call them. I'll text my dad. I'll call my mom and say, Mama, and so there's actually a collaboration that happens with them. Not always with their consent, but they have to as my parents. But yes, this audiobook for me is again an opportunity to bring a light onto this form of storytelling. I find it very enriching. I find it very generative, and I want us first of all, Watina, to really celebrate the fact that we have these rich forms. When someone says fairy tale or folktale, for example, you're thinking Cinderella, you're thinking Three Bears, whatever. But how often does someone go and think, yo kanene yazilanzo minge gonqonqo no jakalashe nomvofu babaleka bathini wathi ayikabame naliliwalizawa, but so all of those things, and yet there was such a significant and important part of our formation. So for me, the idea of submitting for Grammy consideration, hopefully getting nominated and winning, because why submit if you're not gonna is to just put a global spotlight. And I'm not the only one. There are people, I think I keep referencing, for example, Zoe Modeja, when she put out an album and she was starting to speak about Inganekwane and Kos and some of the titles of the song. There's work that's happened with, I think it was Hlakanyana, there was a production, a musical that was staged. So this is actually, it feels like some kind of renaissance towards African traditional storytelling. We are not the first. We are simply joining a collective of voices. So something like Grammy recognition for me would mean an opportunity to spotlight and platform what it is. But in our stories, in our voices, that for me is really significant, not with a Western lens, but us telling the world who we are. Yeah.
Well, I definitely think the old guard who sort of held that particular essence of who we are as storytellers and kept those fires alive and burning, the likes of Mamgcina, really happy.
Huge fan, and we get to actually interact and work together quite a bit through various spaces. So I've had some people, they're very kind. It's like, oh yes, I'm like, I wish I had that, but for this time I'll do my best. But yes, they're very important in and to know that we're preserving these traditions, but also reworking and revamping and modernizing. In the book itself, I play around with Shakespeare a little bit, because some of my postgrad research was on Shakespeare, and he appears as the villainous character. I can't even say spoiler alert. Look, this book has been out for a year. If you didn't have it, my bad. But where I co-opt the Tempest and Prospero in particular as this villainous colonial figure, and he plays in Ikwinsomi kukho igonqonqo as the villainous figure who plays, who takes on all of those particular characteristics, and so he's the cannibal in the book. And for me, it's I think it's pretty obvious in terms of how it speaks to the colonial conquest, but it's also to say, why not to Shakespeare? Why not? Of course, I have no respect for the dude being Shakespeare. No respect. I have a whole thesis on it. So even that for me is like, it's not just taking Inzomi as we know it, but it's to take all those other influences as well and bring them in.
I'm completely elated by just your presence and I think your approach to literature as well. It's a unique voice. I think a voice that is missing in the jigsaw puzzle of all things. And the time could not be more ripe for this. You speak about, and I've often said this, that I see an interesting, what is the English word?
It doesn't have to be English.
But there's this interesting sort of, I guess, rebirthing, reawakening by African creatives, and through the various disciplines, there are young creatives of your generation that are really just reclaiming who they are and representing it in a way that that brings all these worlds, like you've been saying, that brings all these worlds together and reflects all these worlds' dynamism, but also where they are completely confident and rooted and grounded in all of them.
Absolutely.
Without losing themselves in one or the other. It's just like, I belong to all of them, and I'm able to navigate them all simultaneously.
I should have asked you to write my blurb. Because it's so succinct. I mean, I should have asked you to write.
I would have run out of the words. I would have run out of the words. So folks can get their copies of the book Weeping Becomes a River by Usipoga Jonas. You definitely don't want to miss it. Add it to your collection. It is the recent debut prize winner for the University of Johannesburg's prize for South African writing. And like we keep saying, that I think this book is going to go to places and spaces where you didn't even envision it going to. So Kuluma now again in like a year or two after that Grammy nominations list comes out.
Yes, out here, yeah, getting poetry out here. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
It was such a pleasure meeting you. I know you headed back home, but are you planning on coming back to Johannesburg or doing any other city activation tour, anything?
Well, yeah. So what we did in Cape Town, actually, the launch of the audiobook was at the Open Book Festival.
Okay.
And it was, so this book is also going to exist as a stage production and as a short film and any other thing. I'm busy working on the children's book adaptation. Whatever my mind thinks, that's how it's going to sort of exist. But we did a live stage performance of the audiobook. So actually taking Inzomi, putting it on stage, just me and a chair, as well as an instrumentalist, and then the composer. So if you're able to hear a clip from the audiobook, the composer has created this incredible soundscape, so that actually supports the text. And he was playing that live, so it was a live performance of the audiobook on stage. And so I would love to tour next year to have these listening sessions, these performance sessions of Linsomi. So I'm just like, people come listen to Insomi.
I mean, I feel like you've just reminded me, Ntosh. I feel like Spokazi has just reminded me that we actually do have a clip of the audiobook. And maybe let's play out with that in our last 2 minutes.
Disaster arrived on an unassuming day, as most days are. The village had returned to normal and all gossip about the naming ceremony had died down. In the girl's 7th year, lachona ilanga kumakhulu, leaving a great absence in her beloved granddaughter. The only thing that could comfort the family was the approach of Ulinde Ukutiwa's 7th birthday and the promised end of the healing ritual that she had known from birth. She knew the song well and would hum it to herself sometimes while playing with other children. But she had been taught never to let anyone know the truth, and she would brush her friends off when they asked. One day, while father was supervising the herd at the cattle dip and mother was bartering in the next village, she and her best friend were hard at work, trying to invent new games. "Hi, Oli," her best friend grumbled. "Kudala sidlala undize, futhi wena uzimela kwindawenye qho, idikiwe mna."
Stages, pages, screens, and more on The Full Circle.
Join us Tuesday at 6 on Afternoon Express as we join entertainer and DJ Luke McPherson to chat about what comes next after his 30th birthday. Musical artist Baby Days joins us in studio to catch us up on all the latest. We look back on Mani Libok's journey to becoming a professional rugby player. Raul de Mornay and Malco Bay finally tied the knot, and Afternoon Express was invited to the wedding. That's Tuesday evening at 6 with repeats on Sunday mornings at 8:30 only on S3.
You could spend 10 minutes waiting for the microwave to beep or get a 10-minute quote from Outsurance that could save you thousands on your car insurance. SMS out to 30754. Like 55-year-old Stefan, who now only pays an unbelievably low 611 Rand a month for his 2024 Suzuki Jimny. With Outsurance, you can drive with confidence. With up to a whopping 5 million Rand third-party liability cover that covers damage to the other person's vehicle in an accident, you can rest assured. SMS out to 30754. 00754. After switching, 55-year-old Andre now pays only 776 Rand a month for his 2024 Toyota Urban Cruiser. Get a quote. If Outsurance can't beat what you're currently paying, ask them for 500 Rand. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Savings or cash, you have nothing to lose. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
With the ever-changing financial landscape, it can be difficult to make sense of all the moves at times. Join me, Jimmy Moyaha, on the SAFM Market Update with MoneyWeb, Mondays to Thursdays, 6 to 7 p.m, as we break down the key market trends, top financial stories, and smart investment insights, all in one place. It's everything you need to stay financially informed and ahead of the curve.
Here, there, and everywhere. SAFM 105.9 FM in Port Elizabeth. Living your best life on the Full Circle.
All right, in our final moments, before we get to the top of the hour news, we are catching up with Naz Fredericks Maharaj, who's the founding director of Women In. And this November, women from every walk of life are going to gather for a one-of-a-kind event that redefines what empowerment truly means. How are you doing this afternoon, Naz?
Well, thank you, Bridget, and yourself.
I'm great, thank you. So, the Women In Festival 2025. It's happening on the 13th and 14th of November out in Cape Town. Give us some context.
Yes, Bridget, it is. It's happening here in Cape Town, 13th and 14th of November. You know, the mission of the Women In Festival is ideally to create a space where women are empowered to embrace their full potential without boundaries. It's all about holistic empowerment, breaking down stereotypes, building confidence, and amplifying voices that are often overlooked. This year's theme, Bridget, is limitless, no labels, no limits, no apologies. It's a bold call for women to own their identity without shrinking themselves to fit into society's expectations. It also celebrates unapologetic authenticity and the courage to dream beyond limitations. There is so much more that the Women In Festival is offering this year, all designed for women to step into their limitless power.
Yeah, I mean, you have convened over 60 powerhouse speakers,
Yes.
and you've curated rather an expansive lineup of masterclasses and workshops, and your international stage speakers list reads like. I don't know. It reads like really just the powerhouse masterminds of South African industry, because you've got the likes of Bridget Masinga coming through. You've got the likes of Zingiswa Losi coming through, president of COSATU, and Uthando Hopper, the lawyer activist.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we do. You know, I actually met these phenomenal women, you know, as we do our community work and so forth. And I just want to touch on Zingi, for instance. You know, we were at the P20 inaugural launch of the Women's Parliament, and Zingi's voice shifted that entire room, and she owned it with such power. And we're like, you know what, Zingi, you need to be at the Women In Festival because of who you are and what you stand for. And, you know, our program is very, very intentional about doing that, Bridget. You know, we're not just bringing women that are, you know, that hold a certain position into the room. We're actually very deliberate on the speakers that we are bringing into the room, so that every single woman sort of sees themselves within these speakers, you know, and they walk away not only being inspired by the speakers, but walking away with practical skills and knowledge from the entire holistic program.
And your program touches on a few sort of themes. As you say, it's holistic. It's not just a tick box talk shop women's event, another Women's Day event type vibes. You are dealing with a whole round of issues and themes.
100%, Bridget. You know, for us, we have multiple touch points throughout the year, and we support woman-run festivals and women-in events and so forth. We really do our bit in that. But we also realize that, we need to think about why we're doing what we're doing and what is the impact that we're creating, right? It's great to go to an event, you walk away inspired, you meet phenomenal women. But what happens after the event? And this is where the festival and the Women in portfolio comes in. Essentially with all of our in-sector touch points culminating in the Women in Festival, we truly see it as a catalyst that doesn't really end when the lights go down. It sparks collaborations, mentorships, and networks that continue to thrive beyond the event. And I mentioned earlier, it provides women with tools, platforms, and relationships that fuel ongoing change in their workplaces, communities, and industries. There's actually a ripple effect that is strengthened through the Women in Festival, bringing women together, and it just strengthens the women empowerment movement within South Africa. We partner with a number of associations, NPOs, and partnerships, and for instance, we're partnering with Women for Change, Sabrina, Mary-Lise, the ladies that are doing phenomenal work, in the gender-based violence and femicide space, where we're actually hosting a 2-day gender-based violence workshop alongside Women for Change, where we will also have counselors on site. So if anybody should feel triggered, they actually have a safe space to go and talk, and to us, it's more than a festival, it's more than a movement, it's everything that we do driven by passion and purpose. And it's not just the TikToks, Bridget. That's why I think we shy away from August, so we can support all the phenomenally amazing events that are out in South Africa. But for us, it's all the time. Empowerment should not just be August; it should be every single day. And we're walking that. We definitely are.
So 13th, 14th of November, over 2 days at Cape Town's iconic Newlands Cricket Ground. That's where the Women in Festival is going to be hosted. Naz, as we wrap it up, just where do folks go to reserve their ticketing?
Awesome. Thanks, Bridget. So, tickets and full festival details are available on our website, www.wearewomenin.com. You can also follow us on Instagram at wearewomenin, as well as LinkedIn. And that's where you'll also find key updates on the Women in Festival. We also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to and a WhatsApp group that you can also subscribe to get regular updates.
Awesome. Naz Fredericks Maharaj, founding director of Women In, thank you for the time. 13th and 14th of November, if you find yourself in Cape Town. It's 2 o'clock. It's time for Ondela to bring us the news.
Thank you, Bridget. On the top stories, Ramaphosa wins judgment appeal on Amazulu King recognition case, and Japanese stocks hit a record high. For SFM News, I'm Ondelambana, and a very good day. President Cyril Ramaphosa has successfully appealed the December 2023 Gauteng High Court in Pretoria's judgment that set aside the recognition of Amazulu King, His Majesty King Misuzulu Kazwelithini. The Supreme Court of Appeal, in a judgment today, has set aside the High Court order which invalidated Ramaphosa's recognition of King Misuzulu Kazwelithini and replaced it with an order dismissing Prince Mbonisi Bekitemba Gebaguzulu's application with costs. Kenny Mapanga reports.
This comes after the president launched an appeal against the judgment, arguing among other things that he acted lawfully and there was no basis to set aside his decision. The SCA found that the High Court erred and concluded that the fact of the matter is that by the time that the president took a decision to recognize King Misuzulu Kazwelithini, there was neither evidence nor allegations that the Zulu customary law and customs were not complied with. Kenny Mapanga, SABC News, Johannesburg.
The trial within a trial into the theft of $580,000 at President Cyril Ramaphosa's Palapala farm in Bilabila, Limpopo, has been postponed to Wednesday this week at the Modimolle Regional Court. The postponement came after the accused informed the court that the Oshiwambo interpreter was not accurately interpreting all the information. The trial within a trial was declared to examine the evidence of another state witness who told the court that he pleaded not to depose a written statement but was ordered to sign one by police. Accused number 1, Emanuela David and siblings, accused number 2 and 3, Floriana David and Dilinasho Joseph, are on trial for the February 2020 break-in and theft at President Ramaphosa's farm. Limpopo NPA spokesperson Mashudu Malabi explains.
So far, we were started with trial within the trial in order to determine whether the witness will be truthful to what he gave to the police or to prove whether he will be declared hostile.
The state has called for the advocate of the alleged mastermind in the killing of the former ANC Youth League Secretary General Cindy Somagaqa to recuse himself. Advocate Christoph van Schalkwyk was representing the former Umzimkhulu municipal manager Zwelipansi Skosana in the High Court in Pietermaritzburg. Skosana appeared alongside 2 other accused for the first time this morning. Advocate van Schalkwyk also represented Sibusiso Ngengwa, who had pleaded guilty in June and implicated Skosana. State prosecutor Advocate Lawrence Gaba said Advocate van Schalkwyk cross-examination of Ngengwa when he testified for the state would be in conflict of interest. The case has been stood down for legal teams to discuss the next court date. The Democratic Alliance leader Johnston Hazen says his party has set its eye on the Nelson Mandela Bay Metro in the Eastern Cape in next year's local government elections. He was speaking in Gqeberha at the launch of the party's mayoral candidates campaign for the Metro. Retief Odendaal, a former mayor of the Metro, is the party's candidate. In the 2021 local government elections, no single party had won with an outright majority, leading to the formation of a minority coalition government. Hazen says they want to avoid a coalition scenario.
Can you remember those times when this municipality did its job? It began to show those green shoots of growth, when service delivery was happening, when we had a working bus service, where corruption was no longer the order of the day, with a metro police force that was starting to get on top of crime. I can remember those days because I came here a lot.
Japanese stocks have hit a record high after the country's ruling Liberal Democratic Party named Sanae Takaichi as its new leader. This move has positioned the pro-business politician to be Japan's next prime minister. Takaichi, who has held senior government roles including Minister for Economic Security and Internal Affairs, is known for her support of higher government spending and lower borrowing costs. She is a long-time advocate of aggressive government spending and monetary easing to stimulate growth. The BBC's Surajana Tiwari reports.
Sanae Takaichi is a veteran lawmaker and a devotee of the Abenomics policies of the late Shinzo Abe, which include boosting the economy with aggressive spending and lower interest rates. That kind of spending shift could spook investors who are already worried about Japan's debt load, which is among the highest in the world. Takaichi will have to regain trust from a public angered by rising prices and drawn to opposition groups promising stimulus and clampdowns on migrants in the world's fourth largest economy.
Recapping the top story, President Cyril Ramaphosa has successfully appealed the December 2023 Gauteng High Court in Pretoria's judgment that set aside the recognition of AmaZulu King, His Majesty King Misuzulu Kazwelithini. I'm on Delambana for SFM News at 2:30.
Hi everyone, my name is Itumele Nkune, SABC Sport football analyst. When I feel down and I listen to gospel, it gives me motivation. I'm a person who loves all genres. If I was a chef, my favorite meal that I would prepare would be pap, cabbage, meaty bones, with a bit of acha on the side. My favorite language is Portuguese. Bom dia, como está? Estou bem. What I like about SABC Sport is they give you the platform and the permission to be yourself and speak any language.
Catch the ever-passionate Itumele Nkune's analysis of Football Aletu on match days, live on Latuma. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
Why was the bodyguard acquitted on all charges?
There was not enough evidence. By Ntate Malema's own words, the gun was handed to him by somebody else. And part of the charges that Snyman was charged with was that he handed Malema the gun. And already that's already been dispelled with. So if that is already out the way, then how then can he also be charged with count 4? If I'm not mistaken, count 4 was discharging of the firearm. How do you link him to the crime in any manner? So there was not sufficient evidence to find him guilty on the evidence before the court.
Intabi Singh Dubazana, the admitted attorney of the High Court and the founder and director of Dubazana Attorneys.
Ashraf Garda on SAFM. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
South African singer-songwriter Naima K coming through. Legally born and named Lungile Khumalo. I wonder where the Naima K moniker comes from. It'd be interesting to know what's the story behind that. But it is Naima K. Where Zizwe is the name of that particular song, and that is how we entered the 2 o'clock hour. So in this hour, we're going to be touching base with Ntabiseng Dubazana, who's the director at Dubazana Attorneys, and we're going to be unpacking that constitutional court ruling that is redefining or has redefined parental leave. We want to know what are the implications here for employers and professionals alike. You know that the Constitutional Court ruled just last week. They ruled that fathers are now entitled to equal parental leave as mothers. The court found that the law as it stood then is discriminatory to fathers and unfair and unconstitutional. Here's the question I'd actually like to know from the dads, because when that ruling came in last week, we were just wrapping up the show. So we didn't have a time to ask the dads, Guti, are you going to take leave? Are you going to take leave? I'd be interested to know if dads are going to take leave when their babies are born to go be dads. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, or you can send us a voice note on 0614104107. Now that you are entitled to take leave, maternity leave, are you going to take maternity leave for that purpose? Not for you to go gallivanting, but for the purpose. The old timer who's running our camera today for live streaming is laughing. I would ask you too, timer, but you're at that grandpa stage now. So I'm not going to ask you if you're going to take leave, but are you going to take leave for the purpose of, looking after your baby when your baby's born? And Ntabiseng, how are you doing?
I'm good, Bridget. How are you?
I'm fabulous. It's so funny because we asked this question, and I think the timer's response, and we're going to get to the legalese, but just from a social reaction perspective.
Yeah.
The timer's response here, because he literally just smirked and laughed, and it almost suggests that he would not take the leave for the purpose of diaper changes and 2 a.m. feedings and, to do what that leave is meant to do. I wonder the sentiment of men. What were the guys in your office saying?
They were actually quite excited. Well, most of them, their kids are much older, and they're like, we should have had this when our kids were younger. So they were disappointed. So the ones who are yet to have kids are like, okay, at least now we know we have a chance. So we hope when their turn comes, they will be the ones who are going to be like, okay, ma'am, we are off. We're going to be with our babies. See ya.
Listen, I would love for men to take this opportunity. Let's get to the merits of this case, right? Because this case was brought by a couple to the Constitutional Court. Just remind South Africans who maybe have forgotten how we got to this point.
All right. So this matter, like you said, was brought by a couple, one Mr. Van Wyk and Mrs. Van Wyk. So Mr. Van Wyk was the one who was employed, and Mrs. Van Wyk was running her own business. So based on the finances of the household, the business was actually picking up quite well. And if she were to take maternity leave in the sense that it was registered in terms of the BCEA, then it would mean that the business will suffer significantly. So they had agreed that, listen, seeing as you are the one who's employed, you must take more time off and spend more time with the baby so that I can during the day work, and then at night I can probably be just mom and take care of baby. So dad is like, okay, no, it's fine. Let me go speak to my employer and ask for 4-month consecutive pay, paternity pay, and then employer's like, no. Where do you get that from? You're only entitled to 10 days. And then he was like, no, but these are the reasons behind it. My wife technically is not employed, so therefore she doesn't have to make an application for anything, but she needs assistance. And I have to assist her as the spouse. And the employer was like, nope, not in our house. That's not how it's going to happen. So he then took it on for unfair labor practice, and then it went all the way up to the High Court. And then the High Court actually said, no, man, we see where you're coming from, and we actually agree with you. Therefore, these particular sections, I think it was Section 25 and 28 of the Basic Condition of Employment Act, are actually unconstitutional in that they do not give you the opportunity as a father to spend time with your newborn child for more than 10 days. So
Mm.
because it was dealt with under the umbrella of constitutional law, it had to go all the way to the court for it to be confirmed as unfair and obviously to change, to confirm the unconstitutionality of the act.
Yeah. And then let's talk about the implementation of it, right? Because now the question becomes, how would this be implemented? Part of the chat on social media was, you know, some people, you have a baby in January, they call them Irish twins, have a baby in January, and then oops, you get pregnant again, and then you have a baby, say, by December. So you can't necessarily be taking 4 months off for both those pregnancies.
So I would believe that when it comes to Section 7 of the Children's Act, which is basically the rights of the child are paramount, we cannot now say that because you took 4 months for child A, who was born in January, and then child B is born 9 months later, then you're not entitled to that. What do you mean? Are you saying that the first child is the one more entitled to the right to be around dad versus child number 2? So it cannot be a situation wherein now dad or mom, for that matter, is denied the opportunity to take on the 4 months that are entitled to them. So I would raise it if it were to happen, for example, in a workplace. I would tell that person to say, no, I'm entitled to 4 months for the child that is coming. It has nothing to do with the fact that my one child was born at this time and the other was born at that time. That's neither here nor there. I am entitled to my 4 months. So it would be very interesting to see how an employer would justify not allowing you to take on the 4 months that you're entitled to.
Yeah, it would be very interesting indeed. I want us to just take a quick pause here in Tabi Singh, and then we'll come back on the other side of this. It's just gone 2:20.
Great news, travelers! FlySafair is now flying between Cape Town and Hoedspruit 3 times a week. So, whether you want to chase the Big Five in Kruger, soak up the views at God's Window, or wind through the beautiful panorama route, Hoedspruit is the perfect launchpad to some of SA's amazing natural treasures. Ready to go from coastlines to canyons in just a few clicks? Book flights now at flysafair.co.za from just 1,570 Rand. FlySafair, for the love of fly. T's and C's apply.
Channel your inner feel-good on Expresso this October, from big global moments like the G20 summit to how it all plays out right here at home.
We are keeping it real this Mental Health Awareness Month with conversations that lift and inspire. And of course, all the good stuff that you love, delicious food, fashion trends, and everything in between.
Wake up with the Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. on S3.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
So we're unpacking the Constitutional Court ruling that said that dads are now entitled to paternity leave. That's longer than that 10 days that they were initially entitled to. Following the judgment, mothers and fathers are now able to split the 4 months of leave post-birth equally. They can split it whichever way they want to. But yes, they can now split that 4 months of leave post-birth equally. In the interim, though, Tabi Singh, from what I understand, the Constitutional Court ordered changes with immediate effect to the universal parental leave that all parents, biological, adoptive, and commissioning, are collectively entitled. So does this mean that we don't have to wait for Parliament to change anything? Like if you're pregnant now, today, as a dad, you can literally apply for your leave from today?
Yes, 100%. That's exactly what the court is saying. So usually it would be a situation that, not usually, in this particular case, actually, they were given 36 months to amend the Basic Condition of Employment Act. But in the interim, there's an interim order that reads in to say that fathers are now permitted to have the 4 months and 10 days leave awarded to them in the event that both parties are employed. Then preference is given to mom because she has to recover, but then it is between the two parties how they then choose to share the 4 months between themselves. But in the event that only one party is employed, i.e. dad, then he is entitled to the full 4 months and 10 days. So he should not be restricted.
I see. So where both parties are employed, we're sharing the 4 months. But if dad is the one in full employment, he then gets the 4 months of complete leave.
100%. Yeah.
Lovely. Very nice. I'm very intrigued. Let's go to WhatsApp. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. Would you take your paternity leave as a daddy to go be a daddy and bond with your new person?
Yes, Bridget. Of course. Good afternoon. For me, I will take leave. Personally, I will take leave. But I'll give time for the mother and the baby to bond. I won't be there during the day because I don't want to be in the way. They need that bonding. But yeah, I'll be there. I'll be taking the leave for sure. No, that is definite.
I love the fact that you're taking the leave, but here's where I have contention. How are you in the way? You're not in the way during the day. In fact, you are there to assist mom so that you can get some sleep. I think dad is going to take that during the day to go play golf. And then he's going to come back at night and pretend to be on night duty. No, but I love it. And I hope more dads actually take the leave, to be a part, to actively be a part of parenting in those first 4 months of your baby's life. And they grow so fast. It's a beautiful first 4 months that you really want to take advantage of. And you can still maybe sneak in a golf day here and there just for your own sanity. But but you must be there for all the diaper changes and everything else. And Tabi saying this law doesn't just apply, because I was at home when the Constitutional Court started with the judgment reading. This law doesn't just apply to biological parents, right? Because they extended, even though the application was made by two biological parents, but they've extended this to consider a variety of different parental scenarios.
Yes, that is very true. In the past, it would be that, you can't have babies, or you are in a same-sex relationship and you're going to adopt, or you're going to have a surrogacy situation happen. And then your rights, for lack of a better term, would be limited in that particular instance. So it would be that because you are not the one carrying the child in terms of surrogacy, you don't need time to recover. So as a result, the automatic 4 months that would be awarded to you as mom would not really be awarded, because what are you going to quote-unquote recover from? So you were given limited time for maternity leave. That has also changed. It's to say that you may not have been the one carrying the child, but you still need time to bond with this child. And the process of surrogacy, like it is always deemed, that mom and baby bond during the 9 months of pregnancy, because you were not afforded that opportunity. These 4 months and 10 days should be what you can get to try and bond with the newborn child. And it's also extended also to adoptive parents, because, for whatever reason you couldn't have kids, or you chose not to have kids, but then you ended up having to adopt. You weren't going to be given the same amount of maternity leave time because, one, you're not recovering. Two, most of the time this child is not a newborn, they're maybe 6 months old and above. Then you don't really need that kind of time to bond with this kid. And then the court saying, no, that is not true. We are going against all of this, and you still need that kind of time to form a relationship with this child, the child to get used to you and all of that.
Yeah.
So it has extended to that way, which is very awesome.
Absolutely. Let's go to WhatsApp and hear what the daddies are saying about paternity.
So my question is this one. In the event that the husband or the two parents are not working at the same company, would they then be entitled to 4 months and 10 days respectively? Like how does it work? Because I hear your guest is talking about sharing, but then what happens in the event they are working separate companies? Does each one of them get their own 4 months? Can you just get clarity on that? Thank you.
Ntabi Singh?
So the court is not very clear on that, but my assumption in reading into the law is that if you are working at company A and mom is working at company B, those 4 months are shared between the two parties. So you can decide that mom is taking the first 2 months, or maybe even the first 3 months, and then you take the 1 month and the 10 days. You know what I mean? So I think what the
the different departments would have to do. In other words, the UIF, because it works hand in hand in making an application for you to get paid as any party who is taking this kind of leave, or the companies in which the parents are working will probably have to liaise. That one is kind of a gray area. It's kind of murky. So it would be very interesting to see how companies adopt this. Alternatively, the birth certificate, when it does come, if dad is on the birth certificate, if it's submitted to company A and then it's registered onto a labor site, then it can be also referred to company B, which they can see that dad appears on this birth certificate, and therefore, So that will be something that companies will have to try and work out.
Absolutely, because I think that also speaks to the UIF distribution, because that was the minister's rebuttal initially, was that this is going to be cost effective or heavy on the costs for UIF if mom and dad are both taking 4 months. And I think in my layman's understanding, that's why court then divided the 4 months between the two. But as to how it will play out, as you say, when it comes to implementation company on company, I think a lot of companies have to really have a hard look at their systems and how they're able to manage that and cross-reference and cross-check to make sure. Just the last point, Tabi saying in our last minute, because we have to add a bit of spice. We've got some anonymous dads that are calling offline with my producers. They don't want to go on air, but the common question is, how does this work in a polygamous situation where a dad is pregnant with more than one person in that year? Do we know, or we have to wait and see?
We have to wait and see, but I actually got a similar question from a colleague. I think we were trying to figure that one out. How would it work? And what we came up with is that the best interest of the child will always be paramount. So if it so happens that your children are born in the same month, then the 4 months, okay, great, will work unanimously or at the same time, it's fine. But now, if it is like the scenario that we talked about, that the one who is born 3 months earlier than the other, for example, does it then mean that you will not be entitled to the 4 months for the second kid that was born a little later? It can't be. It can't be, because that's discrimination already, or for the child and for you. So I think the courts and the employers would be implored to allow you to go on your paternity leave. I think the one thing that people are also, or employers are worried about, is the possibility of fraud, because if I don't have proof, i.e. a birth certificate, that I am the father of so-and-so, maybe I have an extramarital child. Most of the time you won't be on those documents. How would then the employer confirm that you are indeed the child, the father of the child, and you are not going to be using their money and taking time off to go to Europe somewhere? So, that will be something that we have to work on as we go. But for now, I think it's available.
Listen, Tabi saying we have to leave it here today, but to that last point, Ondela standing by, to that last point, if you're a dad and you are having even an extramarital situation and you have a child, please stop being shady. Go put your name on your child's birth certificate. Like, your child's got nothing to do with neither, whatever your situation is. That was Tabi saying, Dubazana, director at Dubazana Attorneys. Ondela standing by with the headline news, and then we'll get into Kids Corner.
Thank you, Bridget. On the news headlines, the ANC has identified 10-point plan to increase growth, create jobs and end poverty. This came out at the end of its 3-day special NEC meeting in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg, earlier today. President Cyril Ramaphosa has successfully appealed the December 2023 Gauteng High Court in Pretoria's judgment that set aside the recognition of AmaZulu King, His Majesty King Misuzulu kaZwelithini, and the French Prime Minister has resigned just 1 day after announcing the lineup of his minority government. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Great news, travelers! FlySafair is now flying between Cape Town and Hoedspruit 3 times a week. So, whether you want to chase the Big Five in Kruger, soak up the views at God's Window, or wind through the beautiful panorama route, Hoedspruit is the perfect launchpad to some of SA's amazing natural treasures. Ready to go from coastlines to canyons in just a few clicks? Book flights now at flysafair.co.za from just 1,570 Rand. Fly Safair, for the love of fly. T's and C's apply.
Gordon Ramsay is back, and your favorite kitchen disasters are still somehow in business. New season, same confused chefs, terrifying walk-ins, and enough grease to fry your Wi-Fi. Watch as Gordon tries to fix the unfixable with nothing but sheer rage, British sarcasm, and an iron stomach. Kitchen Nightmares Season 8, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Come for the food, stay for the emotional damage.
SAFM's Meeting Point invites you to join Koketso Sachane for a roundtable dialogue on the crime and gangsterism plaguing the Cape Flats. Join us at the SABC1's M1 studios in Cape Town, where Koketso, together with guests, unpack the crisis and asks how we can make our communities safer. Tune in to the Meeting Point with Koketso Sachane on Wednesday, the 8th of October, as we unpack this critical conversation. To be part of the studio audience, email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
And welcome to Nali Bali. Friendship is one of the most special things in the world. Good friends make us laugh, help us when we're sad, and stand by our side no matter what. They share, they listen, and they make life more fun. But being a good friend also means being kind, honest, and understanding. True friendship is not just about playing together. It's about caring for each other and making sure no one feels left out. Today's story is called True Friends Forever, written by Boipelo Katleho Molokwane. But before we listen to today's story, let's all get up and Once upon a time, on the plains of Africa, there lived two best friends, Zafa the zebra and Orpa the ostrich. They spent their days playing games, exploring the grasslands, and laughing under the warm sun. One sunny morning, as they were drinking water at the river, a playful argument broke out between them.
You know, Orpa, I'm way faster than you are,
exclaimed Zafa the zebra, his black and white stripes glistening in the sunlight. Orpa stretched her ostrich neck and chuckled softly.
Oh, Zafa, you're so funny. Perhaps you are faster, perhaps not. But I'm taller than you are, that's for sure.
Back and forth they argued.
I'm faster.
I'm taller.
But I'm faster.
And I'm taller.
While Orpa was definitely taller than Zafa, the friends could not agree on who was faster, so they decided to have a race to see who's faster.
Ready, steady, go!
Shouted Zafa the zebra. The friends dashed across the grassy plains, their laughter echoing in the breeze. But when they reached the finish line, they couldn't decide who had won.
Let's not fight about it,
said Orpa with a smile. Zafar nodded.
You're right, Orpa. Being friends is more important than being faster or taller.
As the day grew hotter and hotter, Zafar and Orpa started to feel tired.
You know, I think we should get some rest,
said Zafar.
We can play again later. See you then, Orpa.
Okay, Zafar. See you,
replied Orpa as the friends set off to join their heads. But there was danger lurking in the shadowy bushes. A fierce lion stalked through the tall grass, its eyes gleaming with hunger. It crept closer and closer to where Zafar stood sleepily at the edge of a large dazzle of zebras. Orpa was also feeling sleepy, and she stretched her long neck to look around before closing her eyes. Then she got the biggest fright ever. With her keen eyesight, she spotted the lion from afar. She knew she had to warn her friend. Orpa gave a high-pitched whistle to try to alert Zafar to the danger, but his head was down as he dozed. Quick as lightning, Orpa dashed towards Zafar, her long legs carrying her swiftly through the tall grass.
I better be the fastest tonight,
she said to herself. She hooted and hissed loudly, hoping to rouse Zafar as she ran. The herd of zebras moved around restlessly as they saw an angry ostrich running towards them. Startled awake by the commotion, Zafar opened his eyes just in time to see the lion's menacing form. Quickly, Zafar jumped up, ready to defend himself. Orpa ran to join Zafar, her tall figure casting a protective shadow over her friend. Together they tried bravely to defend themselves against the fierce predator, but the lions would not give up. As the friends stood together, Orpa called out for help, her powerful voice echoing through the night. Zafar's head of zebra friends heard the distress call and rushed to help Zafar and Orpa. After lots of furious stamping and kicking, the zebras managed to chase the lion away. Zafar and Orpa were safe. As the dust settled, Zafar and Orpa embraced their hearts filled with gratitude and love.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for saving me, brave Orpa. I'm so glad that you're tall enough to see danger from afar. And I'm so impressed that you can run so fast. Most of all, I'm very thankful for your loud voice,
said Zafar, feeling very relieved. Orpa smiled warmly.
That's what friends are for, Zafar. You were very brave tonight. Remember, no matter our differences, we will always be there for each other.
She said, and so in the heart of Africa, the bond between Zafar and Orpa grew even stronger, showing the power of true friendship. So we come to the end of another Nali Bali story time. Today's story was called True Friends Forever, written by Boipelo Katlego Molokwane. you know that reading and telling stories to children at home can help them do better at school? If you want free stories to read to your children or for your children to enjoy on their own, visit the Nali Bali website www.nalibali.org or Mobi site www.nalibali.mobi. You will find stories in 11 South African languages as well as tips for reading and sharing stories with your children to grow their potential. Also look out for the bilingual Nali Bali Reading for Enjoyment supplement with great children's stories and activities available in newspapers. Nali Bali, it starts with a story.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives. Bridget Masinga is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
All right, we are going to wrap up the show with a conversation looking at redefining education. And this is on the back of the Redefine Education Conference 2025 that's going to be hosted at Red Hill School. It's a 3-day event that's taking place from the 17th until the 19th of October. And this one promises to challenge outdated models of learning and offer new, bold new visions for the future of education. We are chatting now to Joseph Gerasi, who's the executive head at Red Hill School. How are you doing this afternoon, Joseph? Joseph?
Hello?
Hi, how are you?
Yes. I'm very well, and yourself?
I'm great, thank you. Cannot complain. Before we get into things like themes and perhaps looking at the future of education, just a little bit of context around the Redefine Education Conference.
Yeah, so those of you who know Red Hill really well know that, whatever we do, we try and do things that will allow people to innovate in education and learn about innovation in education. So whether we're doing Red Fest and we're innovating in the arts world, or whether we're looking at education, we decided it was time to have a truly international conference in South Africa where not only do we have invited guests from overseas coming to talk about innovation and the type of innovation that's taking place in countries such as Finland, where they are really revolutionary in the way they educate their children, but also to give a platform to the educators in South Africa that are innovating in their classrooms. And what makes this conference, different from all other conferences that I've ever been to, is that we open up this conference to parents as well. So it's not just for educators, but we think that, we believe that parents are absolutely partners in the educational voyage that their children go on. And the more they understand what innovation in education means, the better the school and the parents can build those kind of partnerships up. So we invite parents to come along. It's over 3 days. We've got some of the most incredible speakers around the country that will be talking, within plenaries, within breakaway groups over the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And we're really excited about this. And we think that this will be a defining moment in where we can discuss how education is moving, where it's moving to, and how we can ready ourselves for where education is going. And specifically in South Africa, in many respects, there are pockets in South Africa where we can absolutely compete with the best in the world, and we feel that this conference will be able to compete with some of the best conferences in the world.
Yeah, I'm interested in sort of the purpose of the conference by way of interrogating schooling, right? Because this year's theme is centered around redefining education. Let's talk a little bit about the importance, especially right now, the importance of rethinking the whole purpose of schooling and maybe how we approach schooling as South Africans.
There are so many things that are in South Africa that we've really got to look at. A school like Red Hill really doesn't believe in traditional educational pedagogies and curriculum. We really do believe that we're moving into an era of curriculum reform, digitalization, AI integration, and unless we are at the forefront of understanding these changes, we are going to be left behind the rest of the world. And so we need to be having discussions as to where is education going and getting the role players and the stakeholders involved in this discussion. And unfortunately, there are very few platforms where teachers themselves can become part of the discussion. Often what happens is policy is made at government level and then pushed down to the schools. And I just don't think that's the way things should work. I think it's the people at the coalface that need to be involved in the major discussions around education, and I'm just not sure we have enough of that. So, we're inviting educators from government schools, private schools, policymakers, people that are involved in government, just to open up a discussion. We're not here to tell people what to do. I don't think it's about having the right answers. It's about asking the right questions. And I just think South Africa has the opportunity to really, make a difference in education. Yeah, our education is pretty backwards at this moment. We all know where our literacy rates, our numeracy rates, and I think it's time that we start to decide how do we do things better, so that we can actually catch up with the rest of the world and make sure that we become a leading light in education. And I think we can do that. We've got amazing educators in this country. This will give us all the opportunity to listen to each other and to discuss these new methodologies.
I want to just take a quick break here, Joseph. We'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation. And I'm intrigued about, the sort of look at AI integration and what that looks like for the future of teaching, and particularly how that affects teachers. We'll come back on the other side and explore that thought.
Who's behind the mask? A singing pineapple? A disco dancing dokolosh? It can only mean one thing. It's the Masked Singer US Season 9, the only show where celebrities hide behind wild costumes and even wilder vocals. Is that Beyonce? No. It's your dentist dressed as a giant taco. Unmask the madness, the mystery, and the mayhem. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. S3's got the masks, the music, and maybe your favorite celeb in a flamingo suit. Don't miss it.
SAFM's award-winning drama department presents to you the radio drama series Skyline.
Passage cockpit medical emergency now.
Cabin crew to your stations.
Where the skies promise adventure, but behind the cabin doors, untold secrets are found.
He's signing off on cheap parts they installed like it's nothing.
Catch the radio drama series every Saturday at 9 p.m. on SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and a whole country affected by gender-based violence. All on your favorite SABC radio station. Call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. You are listening to The Full Circle.
In conversation with Joseph Gerasi, Executive Head of Red Hill School, and we are talking around the Redefined Education Conference 2025 that's going to be hosted at Red Hill. It's a 3-day event. It's taking place from the 17th until the 19th of October, and it convenes various stakeholders, educators, innovators, thought leaders from South Africa and across the globe who are going to be coming together for what is a highly anticipated gathering focused on how do we make education better? How do we rethink education for the 21st century? And you're talking about artificial intelligence integration, right? And AI is the big buzzword of the moment, and everyone's trying to figure out how do we incorporate AI into various sectors and various spaces. And I guess education at this level will not be left behind as well. So how do we sort of begin to balance that, the balance between technology and that much necessary human touch by way of teachers?
So I think that's why we are having this conference. At the end of the day, without these discussions, what generally happens in schooling is we do get left behind because generally teachers are not most teachers have not been trained in AI or in technology, and things are moving so fast in that world that if we are not incorporating those technologies into our education, we will be left behind, and our children won't know how to adapt to the new world. The problem is we're all faced with the same problem at the moment. How do we use AI? How do we integrate AI? And what we have done is we've collected some of the most incredibly innovative people in education, starting with our guest speaker from overseas. He will do our keynote address, a man by the name of Haram Kulkarni. He basically comes from Finland. And for instance, his talk is future-ready skills in the age of AI. AI will make teachers more human. Now, that's a really interesting concept. How will it make us, more human? I think what we've got to understand is that AI is here to stay. We can't ignore that it is here. It's really about how do we use it. I mean, we at Red Hill have put together a really wonderful space, which is our innovation hub. What the big questions around the hub is not the space. We can have the spaces. It's what do we do in these spaces? And I'm just looking at the moment at all of the different guest speakers that will be coming along. We've got speakers who are speaking on the myths of future skills. We've got empowering educators with generative AI, a practical approach. There's so much that is happening and so many speakers. I think we've got about 50 odd speakers. It's going to be very difficult to decide which speaker to go to. We've got a talk on shifting from search to ask, the power of AI syntax. So many of the speakers will be talking around these issues. And I don't think anybody has the blueprint. And that's the problem. I don't think that we can have policy at government level that says, it's very easy to say, you will teach AI. But how do we teach AI? Who's got the experience? And it's gatherings like this where educators right across the country will come and pick up tips and then hopefully go back to their schools and say, wow, we heard this amazing speaker. Here's an idea. Why don't we have a look at it? So I would advise, every school to send at least one representative, someone who is an innovative teacher in their school. It's well worth it. I mean, for 3 days, I think it's 1,200 Rand for 3 days, and it's a full 3 days, and it includes lunch and meals and everything else. I don't think that you can get professional development for 1,200 Rand. It's basically 400 Rand a day. So I would really seriously say to every school, send one representative, come and hear these amazing speakers, and then start the discussions at your schools. Go back, show what you've learned, and I think every school should then be involved in having these discussions.
Yeah. If I was just to throw a little hurdle along the road, Joseph, and it sounds like a robust program that's really worthwhile. Here's a conversation that I often have with a lot of education specialists at both the senior or secondary level of schooling as well as the higher level, tertiary level of schooling. And they often speak about this lack of seamless academic integration between the two levels. How do we prepare, especially from a localized perspective, how do we prepare South African high schoolers for what is to come and what is needed at a tertiary level? And oftentimes when you speak to those who work within the tertiary space, that's been one of the consistent criticisms that I hear, saying at the secondary level of schooling, there needs to be a conversation that speaks to preparation of tertiary level of schooling. How do we begin with conversations like this and conferences like this to also address that?
I think that's a great question. And I think the big problem is you generally have tertiary blaming high school and high school blaming tertiary. I mean, that's the issue. And unless the two get together to actually have those discussions, we're going to continue being, having problems. The reality is if we don't work together, we're not going to be preparing our students for what tertiary is expecting. At the moment, we are in a very difficult situation because in order to get into tertiary, you've basically got to write very, very old-fashioned, standardized kind of exams in order to get into university. And often those are not the skills that our kids are going to need when they go out into the world out there. We've got to be having discussions as to are final exams the best way to determine the potential of children, because many children have potential, but they're just not really great at sitting down in a limited amount of time and regurgitating facts. But they have amazing brains, and if they're given those opportunities, they will be able to rise to the occasion. So I think it's a very big conversation, and I'm hoping that, at a conference like this, we will get tertiary institutions coming along and having those conversations. And I think, that's one of the weaknesses I find, in the South African education space, is that not enough discussions take place. And it's what I said earlier. I think there are policymakers who make policies, but they don't engage with the professors, with the teachers, in an indaba where all of these ideas can be brought out, and the same kind of questions that you're asking me now are brought to the fore, and then people grapple with these kind of conversations and say, how do we form partnerships? Because you're right, for me, grade 10, 11, and 12, the senior part of the school, is in preparation for tertiary education. But what is it that tertiary education actually are expecting? What is it that they want the schools to be able to do with the students? That's a very important question. At this moment in time, it's really get them ready for that end of year exam so that they can get a mark or enough points to get into university. And that's, for me, where that conversation has ended. And I don't think it's a really good conversation, because the research shows that these end of year exams are not going to tell us about the potential that we have within the youth of South Africa. We need to find another way of doing that.
Joseph, we've run out of time, but I think we've just scratched the surface of this one. And hopefully, if there are stakeholders in education listening to this, those doors have been open for further interrogation. That conference is happening on the 17th until the 19th of October at the Red Hill School. Joseph Gerasi, Executive Head of Red Hill, we appreciate the time. It's 3 o'clock on the dot. Ashraf is standing by. Inshallah, we'll do it again tomorrow.
Thank you, Bridget, and the team on the top stories. ANC announces its 10-point plan for economic growth, and the Prime Minister of France resigns. For SAFM News, I am Onde Lambana, and a very good afternoon. The ANC has identified a 10-point plan to increase growth, create jobs and end poverty. This came out at the end of its 3-day special NEC meeting in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg, earlier today. Despite remaining far below the level needed to reduce high levels of poverty and inequality, the country's growth rate improved in the second quarter of 2025, reaching its fastest in the 2 years. But ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa says there's a lot that still needs to be done. He unveiled his party's intervention to reignite growth in the economy.
The first intervention is to use electricity tariffs and investment in transmission to drive economic activity. This means preferential electricity tariffs for ferrochrome and manganese as well as steel. The second intervention is to accelerate the recovery of our freight and logistics sector. The third intervention is to rebuild our chrome and manganese industries. The NEC resolved that the fourth intervention must be to improve the capacity of the state to manage major projects, to address infrastructure delays due to weak capacity.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has successfully appealed the December 2023 Gauteng High Court in Pretoria's judgment that set aside the recognition of AmaZulu King, His Majesty King Misuzulu Kanzwelithini. The Supreme Court of Appeal, in a judgment today, has set aside the High Court order which invalidated Ramaphosa's recognition of King Misuzulu Kanzwelithini and replaced it with an order dismissing Prince Mbonisi Bekitemba Kabekuzulu's application with costs. Kenny Mapanga reports.
This comes after the president launched an appeal against the judgment, arguing among other things that he acted lawfully and there was no basis to set aside his decision. The SCA found that the High Court erred and concluded that the fact of the matter is that